Hey friend, welcome back to the Care Collective podcast, a space where we walk alongside caregivers through every part of the journey. From the first moment everything changes to the identity shifts, the emotional weight, and even the questions of who am I now? If you're new here, this podcast is for caregivers who want to be seen, understood, and feel a little less alone in what they're carrying. Because caregiving isn't just about what you do, it's about what it asks of you emotionally, mentally, personally, and even more than that. And today's episode is one of those conversations that really captures that because caregiving doesn't always start when we expect it to, and it doesn't always come with a plan or even a choice. Sometimes it begins early. Sometimes it comes with layers of family dynamics, responsibility, and pressure that no one really prepares you for. And what I love about today's conversation is that it goes deeper than just the role of caregiving. We talk about what it looks like to step into caregiving at a young age, to carry responsibility when everything around you feels uncertain, and how those experiences shape your identity over time. We also get into something I think so many caregivers quietly struggle with. How do you maintain your identity without losing yourself in the role? And what does it look like to do that inner work when the people around you aren't necessarily doing that? This episode is very honest and it's so real, so wherever you are listening from today, whether you're in the middle of caregiving, just stepping into it, or trying to make sense of your experience, I hope this conversation makes you feel a little more understood. So let's get into it. So thank you for coming on today and being willing to talk to me about your story, because I know when I first got to talk to you, I was just very impressed by everything you were sharing and all the different experiences you've had. It was just cool to learn from you and your stories. Could you just start kind of by introducing yourself at a broad level, whatever you want to share with us, to kind of give everybody an introduction to your
Ross.
background?
All
Yes.
right, so I'm Tessa Lanham, and I'm a mom, a caregiver. I mean, I have lots of roles, right?
Yeah.
But mom, wife, and caregiver have been the biggest ones of my life. I really had limited career just because there was so much going on in my life with all the people I'm taking care of. Yeah, just kind of how it went. Luckily, I never attached to, I need to be a career woman or I need to be
Right.
at home. But, definitely working did give me some fulfillment. So, it is what it is. Like a lot of people have different paths in life, and I just chose to
Yeah.
embrace that path of, work was secondary and family was first. So,
Yeah. No, of course. I think it's still great no matter what you end up doing. There's a lot of impact you can have at home. There's a lot of impact you can have in a job. All of it is super important. So can you
right.
tell us a little bit about your caregiving journey? Kind of started from a much younger age than you probably anticipated. So can
Yeah.
you kind of tell us about that experience?
Yeah, it started probably around age 15. My brother was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer, and I think he was barely graduated from high school at the time. I think maybe he'd been out of high school for maybe 6 months. And, it was pretty advanced. It was already stage 4 when we found it. And at the time, I had gotten pregnant too. And so he was pretty much the only person that knew
Yeah.
in my family that I was pregnant. And so being pregnant at 15, 16, really interesting. And
Yeah.
then, I started noticing like a lot of different things in my family that were happening, different dynamics between my parents. And it was more of an avoidance thing and a blame thing for them. I think
Right.
that's how they coped.
Right.
And I could see that my brother wasn't getting the care that I would imagine somebody would want when they're going through something so,
Right.
devastating, I guess is the word. And so I decided, like, since I was pregnant, I'm just going to go to high school at home. I'm just going to get my books and I'm going to take care of him.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And it kind of launched me, right? Um, Yeah, so it was really interesting because it was, for me, it just kind of really helped me understand my true nature, like who I really
Mm-hmm.
was, what I really
Mm-hmm.
valued, understanding my priorities as far
Mm-hmm.
as life went. I learned how to like get out of learned helplessness a lot
Mm-hmm.
quicker
Yeah.
than most people. Because, those, both of those things are very life changing, right?
Right.
I knew I had choices. I could give my baby up for adoption. I could choose to let my parents figure out how to take care of my brother, things like that.
Yeah.
But it just really did a lot of internal searching for me
Yeah.
that kind of really brought out who I really was at a very, very young age. And I just learned to trust myself more in that situation. I read the medication bottles. I got involved in listening to what his oncologist would say and his
Right.
treatment plans and stuff. And he would fill me in if I wasn't there.
Mm.
And yeah, it just taught me a lot. And my parents kind of thought I was rebellious for like, I'm just going to drop out of school and stuff like that to
Yeah.
do this. But at the same time, it was like, I think that rebelliousness was me standing up for myself and what I
Mm.
believe in at a very
Mhm.
young age, and taking responsibility and not allowing what everybody else thought about what I was doing to
Right.
affect like my ultimate goal, you know?
Right.
So yeah, caregiving, like starting at age 15, 16 it was kind of a kick in the pants, and I'm really grateful for it
Yeah.
because it's taught me a lot and helped me be able to have the capacity to handle what I'm handling now.
Right. Yeah, no, I was gonna say listening to that it's well maybe it seems like you are grateful for that experience and feel very lucky, but I don't think that many people get that kind of
No,
direction, right, for their life at such a young age to know this is who I am, this is what I want to focus on.
yeah,
I mean, even now in my point of life, I'm still trying, I feel like I'm still searching for that. So I think that's cool that
yeah,
you looking back can see that was kind of the pivotal moment, I guess, for you that kind of started this caregiving
right,
journey.
yeah.
So, what are some other lessons that you think you kind of learned from those earlier years that you've now kind of carried into what your care experience looks like now, which we can go later into what, your current
What it
situation
looks like
looks
now.
like.
So earlier years, I think some of the lessons it taught me was I'm truly capable of a lot of
Mm,
things. Like my daughter's father was quite an abusive man, and I had to leave that.
mm,
And that was really scary. And my brother had passed away right before she was born, like the December
mm,
before she was born. She was born in June. And it was scary because it's like everyone in my family is dealing with the grief, right?
mm.
And then I'm like bringing a baby into it, and
Yeah,
and I have a guy that's threatening my life. Like it
yeah,
was just insane. So I think the lesson I learned is like I really can do a lot more than I think I can. It's just the stories that I would tell myself,
mm,
because for a long time I did hide, and then it was like, what am I hiding from? You
yeah,
know, and you just have to learn how to control your own stories, navigate your own
mm,
fears because you have other people depending
mhm.
on you. And not only that, you have to be able to depend on yourself,
Right.
and especially in caregiving and parenting and all that. Like, if you can't depend on yourself, people aren't really going to trust you.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the path that led me down was like, okay, can I trust myself to finish up high school? Can I trust myself to get a
Mm,
job and be able to find daycare or ask my parents for help with my kid, and finding the right support systems.
mm,
And yeah, sometimes it is scary to ask other people for help. And that was another thing I learned is like, if they want to say no, they'll say no. And if they
right.
say yes and hold it over your head, then you knew they they didn't want to say yes in the first place, and it was fine. It was fine,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But it was like ultimate acceptance and complete and radical responsibility that just
Mm.
really kicked me in the pants. And I don't know. I just feel really blessed for the crazy little path that I took
Yeah.
and all the lessons, right? And it
Yeah.
also showed me like not only like when you're a teenager, you're going through all these like identity shifts. Like you said, like you're in
Mm,
your 20s and you're like, who am I? What am I doing? But it also taught me I can change that
yeah.
along the way. And all it takes is me deciding I want, this part of my life I want different. And so I kind of
Yeah.
have to do an identity shift. And it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's where I found a lot of power and strength too, is when you are in these situations and your motivation is other people. I think that's a very innate thing that women, especially,
Oh yeah.
have the skill and ability, right? Is just you could care less for your own sake about some of these things, right?
Right.
But when you're stuck taking care of somebody else, then you're like, okay, this is why I need to slow down. And I know some of what we talked about as well is like self care or different things that you have to do internally to manage your own feelings, to manage your own perspective of the world, to make sure you can
Yeah.
fully show up for that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I think
Exactly.
that's an important part of what I see from your experience as well, is like how much you found motivation in caring for other people. Like
Yes.
that's why you wake up in the morning, right? That's why you
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. And like, you brought up self-care, like the self-care thing
Mm,
is huge because that is where you find yourself, is
right.
in your self-care. I mean, granted, I'm a hairdresser and I should love all these like
Yeah.
pampering things and the long baths and the massages and the skincare and all that. I'm not into that.
Yeah, yeah.
So like with self-care, it was like forced. People are like, oh, you should practice self-care, get out, get a massage, get your nails done. I'm like, that feels really forced and really just not me, right? My
Right.
thing is, I love learning. So I
Mhm.
was like, you know what? I'm going to go study psychology and get a coaching
Mm,
certification. I'm going to, what else did I do? Yeah, they're not very relaxing things. I love rock and metal music, and my
yeah,
son plays that stuff. So I'm always at concerts, I'm always at his gigs,
yeah.
and that's
No,
my
I love
self
that.
care. Let's see, what else do I do? Like starting businesses. I've started a few. And so I'm like, that's not really relaxing to some people, right? It's like tear your hair
Right,
out. This is frustrating. But for me, I'm like, this is me. Like, I love
right.
doing things like that, adventurous things.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I do for my self care is going four wheeling and challenging myself in
Mhm.
my Jeep to like climb rocks and do weird
Mm,
things, things that would just people are like, oh no, no,
I
no,
love
no,
that.
that's not relaxing.
Yeah, no, I could tell you that because my dad, we went jeeping in Moab and down. I'm sure you've
Yes.
done stuff there if you're in
Oh, I
Utah.
love Moab.
I can ride along, but there were certain things we do. I'd be like, maybe I'd be better watching you do this. I will stand outside and walk and meet you on the other side of this, crazy
Right?
rock you're trying to drive over. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's probably the most important thing, is figuring out what your form of self-care is, and even if it
Right.
looks crazy, like for me, I know some of it is just driving in the car listening to music,
Yeah.
making sure that I don't call somebody, because I think it's easy to get in the car and be like, oh, I need to call this person and talk
Yeah.
about different things going on, always busy with things. But if I just take time to drive in the car, listen to music by myself, I know that I will be happier by the time I get home than if I'm,
Yeah. Yeah. Self care should definitely, I mean, that's why it's self care. It's about you.
right.
Right. And it should leave you excited to prioritize it
Mm.
and fulfilled and energized when you're done. And for me, sitting and meditating or getting a massage, I'm like, when is it going to be done? Like, I'm so
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it just
Mm, I feel
wasn't
you.
me at all. Like boxing and stuff like that. Like we took boxing classes as a family, and I thought that was
Mm.
great. I love that stuff. And it's just, yeah, design your self
I love
control
that.
or your self control, your self care around you. Like you're in control of your self care, and if it just doesn't tickle your fancy and energize you and make you all excited about life, then it's really not self care.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think there's definitely no one size fits all, right? That's
Yeah,
the main
definitely.
takeaway there. Can we talk too about, I think, something else you kind of brought up last time, and you kind of been hinting about it as well in this conversation, but kind of the excuse me, sorry, my voice is going out. Kind of the experience in care where you have to maintain your own individual identity, right? That it's
Yeah.
super easy to meld and associate
Yeah.
yourself too much with the people you're caring for.
Oh yeah.
So what about that experience of how you kind of have to separate, and
Yeah.
maybe the avenue is partly through self-care, but I'm sure there's lots of other things you have to do as well to kind of
Absolutely.
not over identify with being a caregiver at the same time.
Right. So absolutely. When I was going through my coaching and stuff, I did have a coach, and just reading a lot about psychology and stuff, it's like
Mhm.
really easy for us to be kind of influenced by other people's upbringings because they bring it into upbringing you, right? And so that's what I mean, what they kind of label as generational trauma or cycles or things like that.
Right.
And for me, the biggest thing that helped me regain my sense of identity was having a coach and studying
Mhm.
psychology and understanding that my identity is separate from the roles.
Mhm.
I bring my identity into my
Yeah.
roles. So, like, your identity is like, what do you value? What desires do you have? What brings you joy? What do you aspiring to. And then also your identity is going to be made up of your pains and your traumas and your stories and stuff. And again, like, going through like either therapy or coaching or whatever, you can take the negatives out and you're
Mm-hmm.
still left with who you are at the very core, right? And
Yeah.
you bring that into your roles. So
Yeah.
caregiving, it was like, I'm tired of bringing all these, like the learned helplessness, the survival mode, we're racially stigmatized here and stuff like that. Like all
Yeah.
that stuff, I just wanted to leave it behind. And I was like, so my identity has to be different.
Yeah.
So that took a lot of work. I mean, doing the inner work on yourself is huge. I feel like it's one of the biggest factors in having like a satisfying and a sustainable caregiving
Right.
20 Like, I don't think I would have been able to sustain my caregiving journey if I wouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
I've been doing this on and off for 20 something years, but for the last 18 years, I've literally been full time living with my parents. And it's like,
Yeah.
I never would have survived that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No, it's a
Because they
lot.
weren't about to go to therapy. They don't believe in it. So it's like,
Yeah.
so I was
Yeah.
like, someone's got to change and might as well be me.
Right. Yeah. So can we kind of talk through that now, like what your experience looks like now and kind of how over time it's progressed into taking care of your parents more and you
Yeah.
mentioned now they live with you. So what was kind of that process to get to where you're at today with your current situation?
Yeah, that was interesting. So,
Yeah.
so for me, it was like at first, when we first started, it was more controlling, right? I need to control the
Right.
situation. They're hurting themselves. They're almost burning their house down. Like, we didn't live together for quite a while. I was kind of doing the boomerang
Mhm.
caregiving, right? Like
Right.
going and living with them for a bit, leaving my family or taking my family with. And it was a lot of back and forth.
Hmm.
And that came from like a fearful place in me, right? I need to control the situation. They're going to hurt themselves. They don't know what they're doing. I need to be responsible for what they're doing, all this stuff. What will my family think if they get hurt, like their extended family and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Also, it was like almost like growing up, it was expected. Like,
Right.
you're the youngest, you're the daughter,
Mm.
you're taking care of us, whether you like it or not. And
Yeah.
it
Because
was
are you the
my
only daughter
brothers.
in your family then?
Yeah, only
Yeah.
daughter. So my brothers were like out doing their own thing, and I was always like, "Oh, what do you need? What do you need?" You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And eventually, I got super resentful because it was like, you guys, and they're very, of course, when you try to control an environment for somebody or control them, they get super angry with you, right? They
Right.
resist. They don't want it, and I would get resentful of them. Like, can't you just see I'm trying to help you? And but that control piece out of fear or out of love or anxiety, whatever you want to call it, there's like that deep worry that you have
Hmm.
for people. It ends up backfiring, you know? So, uh, when we moved in, it was kind of that. We were fighting all the time, name calling. I got called useless one time and I was like, my gosh, and I
Yeah.
internalized that to the core. I was like,
Mm.
I am useless. That really
Mhm.
sucks. But then I just realized, like, after going through all this and like just talking to my dad, his upbringing was he was useless. If he wasn't bringing in money and helping in his family store and doing all these things and protecting his siblings and then paying for
Mhm.
his siblings when he got older, he was dismissed. So if I
Yeah.
wasn't doing the things he wanted me to do, to him that equated
Mm.
useless, but he was also overlooking, the things I was doing, right? So I
Right.
had to like take a step back and be like, I cannot control how these people receive how I care for them. The only thing I can control is how I respond to them, how I respond to the situation that we're in, and use my best judgment, like
Mhm.
to keep them safe and healthy, but not force it on them. So,
Right.
it was a lot of, instead of just telling them what to do, it was, how can we make this easier? How can we make this safer?
Yeah.
What would you like to do? How about, could we try this? And it was more
Mhm.
collaboration versus control.
Right.
And I had to take that same approach with my kids because now when we all moved into the same house, it was like, well, now I've got kids I gotta raise and parents I feel like I'm raising, but really
Yeah.
and honestly, I'm just kind of helping them navigate life as an older senior, and it was interesting. So,
Yeah.
building a multi-generational home, definitely a lot of work, like physically, financially, energetically, all that. But I think most of the work was figuring ourselves out from the inside out,
Yeah.
you know? Again, I just can't even begin to tell you how important it is
Yeah.
to for at least for my family, how important it was for at least one person to do
Mm.
the inner work and have the control that they needed over themselves to not let
Mm.
things escalate and get out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's another question I have for you then is what kind of advice would you give to somebody to help them to understand that they should work on themselves more? Because I think that's a really hard shift to
Yeah.
make, right? To focus on, especially in those relationships, it's easy to be like, well, they're my parent. They should know better. They live longer than I have. Like, it's really easy to get stuck in that mindset. So, what was kind of helpful for you going back to that time to kind of, and I'm sure it's something you still work on now today, right? Like,
Oh yeah, it's never ending. I mean,
yeah, that's a life process, but
it's a life process. You're always, I mean, we're just designed to grow. We're designed
yeah.
to heal ourselves and we're designed to like open up and look at different perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, one of my first biggest shifts with my dad was, I mean, we had been living in the house already for I think 15 years together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when I was trying to open my salon and I was starting a coaching business. And he kept saying, "Why do you insist on opening a business? I don't understand this. I don't get it. Like go work for a good company, right?" But in my mind, I'm like, if I go to work, I'm going to have to pay for someone to watch you. And
Right.
you hate people coming in our house. And if I go to work, I'm going to be miserable because I'm not like I don't like working for other people.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work for me, right? And I was like, why does he have this view of being of entrepreneurship or owning a business? Why does he have this view?
Mm-hmm.
So one of my things that I learned in coaching was be curious. So
Yeah.
I was like, hey dad, like, so tell me about like business. Tell me about business. What are your thoughts around business? What are your thoughts about working for a corporation? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, gosh, when I was a kid, we had businesses and I was hauling rice bags and beer and cigarettes to the naval base. And I was 7 and it was hard work. And then I would go to school and I'd come home and I'd have to do it all over again. And I was like, okay. And he's like, and we barely made it. Like we were barely feeding ourselves. We were so poor. And I was like, okay, gotcha. And then he says, and then when I graduated school and he had a full ride scholarship to Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, education was it. Like this is
Yeah.
why he was so hard on us about, oh, you're going to go to a university, you're going to get, all this stuff. So he's like, so if without my scholarship, I wouldn't have gotten the great job that I got. And so being able to get a paycheck and send it home to my family and support them. And I was like, light bulb moment.
Yeah.
He sees business so differently, and his company saved him. His education saved him, right? And so, I mean, it was just a really interesting conversation. And I asked him, I said, "So, Dad, why did you move to the United States?" And he said, "For opportunities, and so I could give my family opportunities."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "So, is me opening a business on my own not an opportunity?" And he kind of went, "No, no." And I was like, all right, that's cool. So, I mean, we just agree to disagree, right? But I also see that he's just so traumatized from his childhood that I'm like, and like seeing the corporation as the place that saved him and his education is the thing that saved him. And I'm like, okay, I can respect that. In your experience, that's what worked. So,
Yeah.
we just differ and we just, agree to disagree. Sometimes he still is on me about my businesses and stuff, but it's fine. Like I just for me to be able to understand that and where he came from, it kind of inspired me to understand where I'm coming from too sometimes. Like with my kids, they're like, "Mom, like why are you so controlling?" And I'm like, oh, like I guess it's time for me to go look at myself in the mirror for a minute.
Yeah, yeah, no, it definitely takes there's definitely a lot of humility that has to come in these kind of relationships, right? And kind of putting on your empathetic and compassionate view to be able to see, okay, what did this person experience? How is that shaping that? And I think that's where the generational difference can get
Hmm.
really hard, whether it's you with your children or you with your parents, right? Like you have totally different life experiences. And so I'm sure it's really interesting for you to be able to learn from that.
Oh
But it
yeah.
is difficult if you're with somebody that doesn't communicate the why behind all of it.
Oh
But
yeah.
I think that's where to your point, like learning how to work on yourself, that's been a lesson I feel like I've learned the past year if you're surrounded by people that don't want to go to therapy, that don't necessarily work on themselves, like there are good tools, whether it's coaching, whether it's therapy, to kind of help you learn how to navigate relationships where
Absolutely.
people don't have the tools to kind of cope with these things. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And and it also helps me explain like my parents to my kids, right? Because my parents, like the second my kids are getting close to their senior year of high school, they're like, "What college are you going to?" And
Yeah.
they're
And
just
that's
kind
not
of
always
like,
the fit for everyone.
yeah. So it's like, well, listen, kids, you guys have your choices. Like, you can go to college if you've already decided a
Yeah.
direction, but I would much rather we not waste like tuition money if you haven't
Right.
decided,
If you're going to take 5 years to figure out what to do, let's wait 5 years
Yeah,
before.
exactly. I'm like, I'm okay with it. And they're like, but grandpa's not. And I'm like, it's okay. He can have
That's
his thoughts about it. In the end, whose consequence is it? It's not
right.
his,
Right.
you know? So yeah, it's been really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like,
No, that's the whole summary of all of this,
yeah.
right?
So I would say like if people are really looking for a reason why they should do the inner work,
Mhm.
first of all, it only benefits you.
Right.
Um, if you want to live a better life, your life is going to be going on after you're done caregiving, right? You're still going to have a life after that.
Yeah.
And I think what made it for me, what solidified it for me was, about 5 years ago, like right before the pandemic, actually,
Mhm.
I was spending a lot of time in bed, just depressed,
Yeah.
like really just beating myself up about how bad it was going, how much we were fighting. My kids didn't like me, my parents didn't like me, my husband and I didn't like each other. Like it was awful, and on the outside everybody's like, "Oh, your family's so cute. Look at your new house and all this stuff." And I'm like,
And you're like, come sit inside for a
yeah,
day.
come inside the walls and see what goes on, right? I mean, and the house itself, like the biggest risk I ever took. I mean,
Yeah.
this house, like building a multi-generational house is not a joke. Like
Mm.
it's like two houses in one and it's ridiculously huge and people are like, "Oh, it's fantastic." And I'm like, "It is expensive."
Mhm.
And who takes care of it? Like in the yard and the everything that breaks is twice as much, and it's just
Right.
it was a lot. And not only did we have like the physical drain of the house, but it was like the mental and emotional and psychological
Mhm.
drain. Like just everyone was drained. It was awful.
Right.
Like I literally laid in bed for almost a year straight, just mad
Mhm.
at the world.
Mhm.
And I think if you find yourself at that point where you're just, I don't know, why did I do this? How am I going to go on? Life is over, and you're just at your wits end. That is your sign.
Yeah.
Like, do yourself a favor because you're going to have a life afterwards. Do
Mhm.
yourself a favor and just start reading a book about psychology or healing stuff, or talk to a therapist or go find a coach. I mean, there's coaches everywhere now, right? Like it's
Yeah.
super huge
Everyone.
industry. Be very selective about who you go with, but they should resonate with you. And it is probably the most worthwhile investment you will
Mhm.
ever make in your life.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean, I don't think that I would be here and I don't think my family would be intact and I think the house would have been sold a long time ago had I not done that, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think I started therapy in February for the first time. And already, even just like 2, 3 weeks in, I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like,
Right?
I should have done this a long time ago because already the
Like,
returns were great. And
right?
I just found myself just this past week when I was in therapy telling my therapist, if I had to have this hard conversation like a month ago, I don't think I'd be able to communicate in a healthy manner what I'm
Yeah.
feeling. I don't think I'd be able to work towards the result that I need. Like just looking at how like me a month ago would have approached a difficult conversation in a difficult relationship versus like me now, I was like, that is a huge difference. That's a lot of progress. And I think that's some of the value I've seen with having a therapist or a coach or somebody to check in.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine that she's a coach too, so we kind of do some coaching back and forth and different things
Nice.
and stuff and kind of talk with each other a lot. But one of my favorite things about calling her is the times that she'll be like, Mikayla, I remember like a couple years ago and I saw your change and this happened. And so I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's good to have somebody externally to tell you like you're doing great, like
Yeah.
you're really improving. I'm seeing the hard work that you're putting in, especially when you're probably not going to hear that too often from
Right.
the people you're
Exactly.
caring for.
Especially when you're surrounded by people who don't want to change,
Right.
right? They're not going to admit it.
Right. And so I think I've just seen the value in having somebody externally able to tell you, like,
Absolutely.
all of
And
these.
internally check in with yourself,
Yeah.
because I do remember the day, like I had been in coaching for almost 9 months.
Hmm.
And, like I was telling my coach, I'm like, every time I walk up the stairs to go upstairs into their half of the house,
Yeah.
like I would brace. My
Mm,
shoulders would immediately go up to my ears, and I would just brace for whatever
mm,
barrage of criticism or complaints or whatever was going to come my way.
yeah.
And every noise that they made up there, if they would even cough, I'd be like, And there was one morning where I woke up and, I'm in the same house. I'm married to the same person.
Yeah.
I go up the same set of stairs, same people living upstairs, right? And it felt completely different. It
Mm,
all looked the same, but looked different all at the same time.
yeah.
And I was just like, what is going on here? Like, I had to double check myself. I was like, am I okay? Am I sleepwalking? Like, what is going on? But I saw them in a much gentler light,
Yeah.
you know, and I saw myself in a more compassionate light. Like, I was just like, man, we are going through
Mm,
it, and we went
mm,
through it, and we're going to go through it forever, until they're gone. And it was like, why did this have to be so difficult?
yeah.
And now it's just like, it's amazing. I'm like skipping up the stairs, and
Yeah.
I'm always joking with him, and he gets irritated, but it's,
Yeah.
for me, it's like fun. I'm like, let's poke fun at
Yeah.
dad, but not at his expense, but like just to have fun. Like, he wears three pairs of glasses because he can't see. And I'm
Mm,
like, like I was telling you, I just got him to give up his license like
yeah.
not even a month ago. And I'm like, wow, but you were wearing three pairs of glasses so you could see. Like, okay, dad, and I'll just joke with him about stuff like that. And he
Yeah.
he takes it and he laughs and he's like, yeah, yeah, you're right. It's like, I'm not trying to be right, dad. I'm just trying to be funny.
Yeah. 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 No, I love that though. And something we didn't get to talk about in as much detail last time that I'd love to hear kind of your perspective or journey on as well. I know you kind of hinted at, some of the cultural aspects
Hmm.
of being in an area where you are a minority in
Yeah.
many ways, but that taught you to be an advocate for yourself and to find your own worth. Can you kind of talk about your experience there and how you've applied those lessons to as a
Yeah.
career as
So
well?
that was pretty rough. Growing up as a child, you make it about you,
Yeah.
and it's like, I was different. I didn't choose to be born like this,
Yeah.
and I didn't get to choose my religion when you got me baptized. And, it was
Right.
like all these things like were working against me, and I didn't have a whole lot of friends, right?
Right.
Got bullied a lot, and then eventually at like junior high school, I turned into the bully. It was bad.
Mm,
Like, I was not a nice person. But again, that rebel side came out.
yeah.
And I don't know if you've read the book Let Them Theory yet. Have you read that one?
I've seen a lot about it, so I know in
Yeah.
general what it's about, but I have not gotten a minute to like
So
read it.
I
Yeah.
actually just finished that book yesterday morning, and I was
Yeah.
like, it makes so much sense now what I did as a child. My coping
Yeah.
mechanism was rebelling, basically
Mhm.
saying, let them. Okay, you don't want to play with me. You want to beat me up. You want to call me names, whatever. I'm going to let you.
Mhm.
But I forgot when I was a child, I didn't understand how to use it right. So the
Yeah.
second part of her theory is let me. So the let me part is let me do something about it that I can control. And
Right.
so for me, the let me part was, I'm going to learn how to write. I'm going to learn how to draw. I'm going to learn how to play music. I'm going to learn how to do whatever it is that I was
Mm.
interested in.
Mm.
And I did spend a lot of time alone. At the same time, I think I am blessed for that because I didn't
Mm.
have influences
Yeah.
that made me do any more crazy stuff than was already doing, right?
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, that was kind of harder. Like, my parents felt like I should just like blow it off. They were like, well, you must have done something to get them to notice you and pick on you. And I was just like,
No.
I walked to the bus stop in my private school uniform. That's what I did.
Right. Like I exist. That's all I have to do.
I was existing. Like, I don't know what else to do other than crawl into a
Yeah.
turtle shell and walk over there like that. But,
Right.
it was hard. I almost think that they blame me because when they were kids,
Mm.
someone blamed them, right?
Right.
And I was just like, well, okay, well, blame away. But as I got older, he would blame everyone for everything. And I started seeing
Mm.
that pattern, right? Oh,
Mm.
I didn't get this at work. It's their fault. And I'm just like, I don't know
Mm.
about that,
Yeah.
you know? For me, I kind of had to just suck it up and rebel. But like I said, with that let them theory, I didn't quite understand until I was older how to use the other half. I need to be responsible for what I do,
Mhm.
and beating other kids up was not was not the responsible thing to do, right? So I think probably when my daughter was born, that's when I started using that. Like, what I'm
Mm.
responsible for, what am I going to do about it?
Mhm.
I need to hold myself accountable for certain things. And it's been really cool because like I am literally just like going through the timeline of my life backwards and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, all of that happened for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's because it's so I can live the life I live right now,
Mm.
which everyone says, oh, you're so lucky. I'm like, this is not luck, sweetheart. You
This
have
is
no
life.
idea what kind of muddy bogs I've been crawling through for the last 40 something years. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the cool part about how I grew up and not being different in this area was I just learned like I don't need to be affected by how other
Mm.
people look at me,
Yeah.
at all. And quite honestly, it's like I feel really lucky because I am unique out here and I've made a
Mhm.
lot of really cool friends even at like gas stations and stuff.
Yeah.
They're just like, because now all of a sudden Filipinos are like really popular on social media,
Right.
right? I don't know what the deal is. All my friends are sending me all these Filipino memes and stuff like that. And I'm just like, wow. So people now know what I am because I used to get labeled all kinds of ethnicities, right? And
Yeah.
now people are like, are you Filipino? And I'm like, yes, I am. And they're like, that is so cool. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it is? Okay.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, I can tell you probably think this is funny. I get asked all the time if I'm Asian, and I'm not, to my knowledge. Like, we're as wide as you can get, to my understanding of our
You're like,
country.
ancestry.com. Where are we?
Yeah, like it doesn't even. I don't even get like a something popping up on my DNA test I've taken. But anyways, I was at this conference and ended up running into somebody, and she had to walk up to me. I was like, I just needed to ask, like, are you also half Japanese? Because I'm half Japanese, and like you look like you could fit into my family. And I was like, no, I don't have anything. But
You're like,
thanks for
not
asking
at
that
all.
question, bro. Like,
Right? That's
I
so
guess I
funny.
took it as a
Like,
compliment.
yeah, my kids are actually, they go through it a little bit now. Like, I mean, it's what, 2025? People are a little more open now, but people
Yeah,
are trying to guess what my kids are, right? So they're
yeah.
like, oh, are you Mexican? And they're like, no. Are you Tongan? No. Samoan? No. And then they're like, I'm an Asian hillbilly. That's what they say. I'm like, you're an Asian hillbilly, you guys? And they're like, yeah, dad's from the sticks in West Virginia, and you are from the Philippines. We're Asian hillbillies. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, whatever works for you and your generation to identify
Right.
yourself.
If that's what you want to claim, by all means, go for it. If
Like,
that's what
that's
makes you.
fantastic. Like, my son had that on his Instagram for so I'm like,
That's
take
so
that
funny.
down, please.
I'm sure you're also like if your grandparents heard you saying this,
Yeah,
they
right.
probably
My parents are just
might not
like,
appreciate that.
oh, it's fun. But
No, that
But
is so
yeah,
funny.
uniqueness, gotta love it. And I didn't ever claim it, and now I do. So it's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. No, I love that. And I think it goes back to a lot of what you're saying earlier too, right? If people are going to find fault in it or pick on you for it, like it's really work they haven't done on themselves. And it's something they feel uncomfortable with, right? Like
Yeah,
that's really what it boils down to. And I
yeah,
know something my dad's always telling me that if you find a fault in somebody else, it's because you're insecure about your own,
yeah, exactly.
problems that you
Well,
have.
and it's different, right? Like back then in the 70s, like I was like the only Asian
Right.
and the only Catholic for like miles.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, nobody. I have nobody like
Yeah, no need to relate
nobody
to
looks
you.
like me. So it
Yeah.
was, I get it. It's different and that's fine. But the cool thing
Yeah.
is like raising my kids. I'm like, so what if
Yeah.
they're different? Like they're different. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, that's not their job to make
Hmm.
you feel more comfortable about who they are.
Right.
Right. And it's just been amazing because like my kids are so accepting of everybody, and my son is just
Yeah.
like his favorite people to hang out with are people who are on the spectrum. You know, he
Mm.
loves them. He's just like,
Mhm.
they're amazing. They're
Yeah.
so cool. I love watching them play music. I love how they think, and he's just like
Yeah.
loves them. And I'm like, good. Like that's so cool that you don't
Absolutely.
single out a single person just because of how they look, whatever they've got. You know, it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's super good to see. And I love seeing more people just come together and how things have changed over time. And it's these
Yeah.
kind of things that give me hope for the future. I know a lot of people are like, everything
Yeah.
is terrible politically and all these things going on. I'm like,
Yeah.
sure, there's always things we can improve. I see big improvements that we have made
Yeah.
as humankind that I
Well, and
see to be very positive.
I think the invention of the internet has caused so much divisiveness because it's
Oh, for
creating
sure.
more fear, right? I feel like there's just more fear. We didn't see, I grew up Gen X. We didn't see these things. We had to read a newspaper, and
Right.
who reads newspapers? Like, let's be honest, none of us did. But it is in your face 10 to 15 times more
Yeah.
now than it has ever been, but it has always been there.
Hmm.
Child bullying, that's not new,
Yeah.
like I was on both sides of it. It's not new. Like I'm sure my parents had bullies and your parent, their
For sure.
grandparents had bullies. Everybody had a bully. It's
For
not
sure.
new. It's just more visible
Right.
now because of
Right.
the internet, right? So, yeah, I mean, and opinions, people having opinions, that's not new. Everybody's had opinions forever. People have always complained forever. It's just not new. It's just
That
10
point.
times more in our face. And so, yeah.
No, for
Oh,
sure.
which brings me to like one of the things we talked about, why I left some of my
Yes.
my support groups and social media, Facebook groups, and decluttered my social media like crazy.
Yes. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, is because of all that stuff. I mean, like I said, opinions aren't new.
Hmm.
Judging people isn't new. Bullying people isn't new. I mean, keyboard courage is new, but like,
Yeah.
it's keyboard courage. What are they going to do? But it's just having it in your face, really, if you're not careful and selective, right?
Hmm.
It can seep into you just like anybody's energy at work or whatever. And what I found was like it just kind of didn't serve my life at all. Like I
Hmm.
mean, I wanted support, but I had to say, okay, I'm going to be responsible for the kind of support I'm getting.
Mm.
And some of those groups, they just left me more anxious, more angry, more resentful. Like it was contagion, right? Like
Right.
if you hear a lot of people saying, I just can't do this anymore.
That's what your brain is going to be
Yeah,
trained.
your brain's like, well,
What it's-
can you do it? You probably can't do it anymore either. So go lay down and take a nap. And that's what I was doing. I would just sit there on my phone and complain with everybody and ruminate and be angry and, oh, can you believe they did this today and did that today? And I mean, I don't, at the same time, I'm having compassion for myself because it was like I just needed someone to talk to, right? I just needed an outlet. I needed someone to talk to. I get it. But in some of those groups, there's no hope. There's no
Mhm.
hope. And there's no solutions either. There's no proactive offering of solution. And if somebody did, everyone would jump on them,
Yeah.
right? How dare you suggest, just let them be mad. And it's like, yeah, but I care about you so much. I'm not going to let you be mad this long. You complained
Yeah.
about the same thing for like the last 6 months. Like,
Right.
come on. So unconsciously we'll participate in it and we'll either use it to numb out or to avoid or just to justify how
Right.
we feel. And so, yeah, I mean, definitely tricked me into thinking my world was falling apart.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
fell for it. I did it. I was a
Yeah,
victim for
no,
a minute.
I think it's a good reminder because I've even found myself in that lately too, where I'm like, or one of my friends, because the stage life I'm in, a lot of people just, she's like, I can't get on Facebook anymore because I open it and everybody's getting engaged or having a baby or like all these other things, and she's like, and I don't really, it's fine, congratulations, but that's kind of a
Yeah,
lot to open up and see every single time if I'm not experiencing those things, right? And
right.
so I think it's a lot of what you surround yourself with and a lot of the people that are around you and you have to filter through. So I guess I have two more questions for you before we close. But one of them would be like what kind of I don't know, how did you find other outlets that were good for you to follow? Whether that was, was your answer shut everything down? I just need to focus on my inner work, or did you find communities or resources that were positive for you?
So when I built my boundaries, I told
Mhm.
myself that they're actually for me. They're not for everyone else, right? So people can come to me and they can cross my boundaries. However, I am responsible for
Yes.
enforcing it, right?
Yes.
So, I've had lots of friends like they want to help me,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not the kind of help I need, right? So I have had to like kind of put them in little circles, right? These friends are really
Mm-hmm.
understanding of the caregiving journey. They don't give advice, they just listen and they're very supportive, you
Mm-hmm.
know? In fact, this morning, part of the reason why it was so chaotic is I actually had some friends stop by and drop me off coffee and candles. And they were just like, "Hi, hope you're having a great day." And then we were talking, and I was like, "I gotta get ready." Right.
Yeah.
But those are the people that I kept closer because they
Right.
weren't should, you need to, kind of people.
Mm.
And then I had to make a little bigger circle for those people and then a further out circle for the ones that were like complainers and
Mm-hmm.
judgers and labelers and
Mm-hmm.
like if they were my parents' side,
Yeah.
like I'm like no, that's not helpful, right?
Yeah.
So I had to create boundaries for myself and put
Mm-hmm.
blinders on and enforce my boundaries, not so much to protect myself, but because I trusted what felt good to me.
Right.
Like my friends and support groups that I stay in
Mm-hmm.
are more proactive, are listeners and not judgers.
Mm-hmm.
Come with solutions and expect me to come with solutions too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
If I have one friend that she's like, if you're going to complain about it, please give me an answer. Like, let's talk
Give
about
me a
what
way
your
to support
solution
you
is
in
going to be.
the
Yeah.
solution. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I need to not, I can feel what I feel, but I do not need to just keep going about it. Like,
Right.
she's like, I know you. You've never been like that. You've always been a go getter. So let's go get it. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, you're right. You're right. So I think that's one of the biggest things is having that boundary where where you're allowing
Mm-hmm.
yourself to get sucked in to
Mm-hmm.
learned helplessness, learned victimhood,
Right.
ruminating and commiserating with people. And it's just not beneficial for you. And you have to be
Right.
able to say, I'm done. I'm done. Everyone's caregiving journey is unique.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm certainly sure there's people who are caring for people who have worse health issues than my parents,
Yeah.
and I get it. And I'm totally compassionate towards that. And I'm not going to judge how they do it and stuff. But for me, I would hope that me helping them not ruminate and commiserate and helping them be more proactive on
Mm-hmm.
finding ways to take real care of themselves and
Right.
their role and the people that they love. Because I mean, let's be honest, if we didn't care about them, we wouldn't be caregivers, right? Like a lot of people were like, I'm obligated. I'm like, not really. Like there are agencies that will take care of them.
Right. There's lots of options out there. And so if you take on that responsibility, it's because you care and your heart is there. Right.
Yeah, your heart's there. Don't deny it. Like that's the biggest thing is like don't deny it. Like if you didn't care, like for instance, if I didn't care about my daughter, I would have given her up for adoption. I had plenty of people that wanted to adopt her. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, that's my kid, like
Yeah.
I care. And my brother, they could have hired care for him, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want someone else caring for him. I
Right.
wanted to care for him. So it's like you just have to accept your caring nature. And a lot of people
Right.
try to avoid that out of fear of getting hurt. Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. And I think it's a difficult thing to acknowledge in a
Yeah.
world that doesn't want to encourage that kind of quality often. So I think being able to have the space and the time to develop that and to follow your passion in the way that you have is a great gift to just embrace that caring heart and
Yeah.
surround yourself with your people.
Absolutely.
So I think that's great. So one last question for you is just if you had any other kind of advice or things to share with somebody who's kind of going through their caregiving journey and they're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, what would kind of be your advice if you could tell them one thing?
Okay. So if I could tell them one thing, this is the one thing that seriously made the biggest difference for me, especially living in the
Mhm.
multi-generational home with all the different personalities and stories and beliefs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
is that you manage your household, but you lead your family. So, meaning you don't need to manage your family.
Yeah.
You might manage their medication schedule, you might manage their doctor's appointments, things like that. But as a person, they don't want to be managed. They want to
Mm-hmm.
be advocated for, they want their dignity, they want to feel like they're in control of
Mm-hmm.
their own lives. Manage your household. Yeah, do chores, whatever. Make a chore schedule, chore chart, medication chart, all that stuff. But the people themselves, they don't want to be managed. They want to be led. And I think that was the biggest thing for me was I was trying to control and manage everything, the house
Right.
and the people in it.
Right.
And when I finally got aligned with this whole let's learn about human behavior,
Mm.
like the leadership part and the
Yeah.
influence part, I was like, oh my gosh, like, how did I not see that? Like, I'm advocating for their dignity. I'm advocating for who they are as a person, what they believe. I may not believe the same thing and I may not want to make the same choices they make,
Yeah.
but they're not going to listen to me if I'm not a trustworthy person, and I'm not doing what I say I'm going to do. Right. So I needed to become safe for them to come to
Right.
me. And I also needed to become trustworthy to them. So I think that's why my dad gave up his license, is he knew, okay, she's not really telling me I can't drive. I told him it was his choice. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of did have a conversation with his doctor beforehand when I brought him to the doctor. And she did more of the heavy lifting of, you cannot drive anymore. You can't see.
Right.
Right. But I made him feel safe to ask me for rides
Mm.
and stuff. So I was like, yeah, Dad, I can totally, I'll put up a schedule. Whenever you want to go to church, I'll bring you to church. Whenever you want to go shopping, I will bring you shopping.
Right.
And it wasn't, well, I'm going to fight you on this. We're going to collaborate on this. And when he
Mm-hmm.
saw that I was being more of a leader rather than a controller, a manager,
Yeah.
he was way easier to deal with.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's the main part of behind all of it. I think too is just remembering the real person behind all of it, because I think that's really easy for caregivers, understandably, not
Yeah.
trying to fault them, to see the task, to see everything that's going on, and you kind of forget the person with the emotions, right? Because your dad, he's thinking about, how scary it is to give up driving,
Yeah.
and
His one piece of independence.
right, like that's the only thing he had control over anymore. And I can't imagine that that would be really hard
Yeah.
to experience and to go through. And you're thinking about, well, I'm stressed because I don't want to get into an accident and deal with all
Yeah.
these, things going on. And so I think that's what I've heard from you over and over is, the more you can bring up these emotions and tie it back to that, that's
Yeah.
when you get further. And it might take you several conversations to get that point
Oh,
across.
yeah.
It's
Definitely.
definitely not a one time conversation thing, but just I think both sides remembering the humanity of it, but at its core, focusing on what you can focus on, what you can control, which is yourself. That's the only thing you have. That's what gives you longevity and keeps your sanity through, all of
Absolutely.
these experiences, right?
Yeah. And it actually does. It expands your ability to take care of
Mm.
more.
Right,
When you're allowing people to be who they are,
right.
not making it about you, you're not draining yourself as much.
Mm.
And you're actually freeing up your time because, like, I'm like, hey, you know what? You want to manage your whole household upstairs by yourselves. And I mean, I know they can barely walk and stuff,
Yeah.
but I let them do what they can do. And then when they're not paying attention, I go and finish it up.
Mm.
But it's like I allow them to keep trying to take care of themselves because that's what they got.
Right.
I mean, and sometimes they'll fall. I can't stop that. I cannot
Yeah.
stop when they fall. I can make sure when their area is safe if they do fall. There's no sharp
Mm.
corners, right? I feel like I'm baby proofing my house all over again. We've got like bumper
Yeah.
pads everywhere and stuff. But and I want to protect their dignity as a human because they
Mhm.
were young once and
Mhm.
it's going to take a minute for them to understand they don't have the same balance, the same
Mhm.
eyesight. They aren't capable of thinking the same way. I'm noticing they're regressing back into like acting like
Right.
children and
Right.
teenagers.
Human behavior
I
fast.
always joke with myself, am I going to get Jose Jalapeno or am I going to get Jose Habanero? Because he's got a spicy side when he's normal and he's
Yeah.
really mean when he's regressing, right? So I'm
Right.
like, I wonder who's upstairs today. whoever shows up, I just have to meet that person right where they're at.
Right.
He's
Just
spicy
love them in
today
your
or
eyes.
he's extra hot. I'm going to be like extra nice because
Yeah.
I understand that that's not him.
Yeah. That. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this, because I know I learned a lot from you, and I think your story is great, and I can see you
Awesome.
have a lot of experience with this, just been shaped by everything you've been through, and I still think it's very inspiring to see how you've been through a lot but still have that composure and compassion and care for everyone around you, despite what you've gone on. So I can see the work you put into yourself and all the ways that you help other people around you. So I really appreciate that, and appreciate your willingness to share this with everyone, because I know this isn't an easy topic to discuss either.
Yeah, it's not fun to
But
point the finger at yourself all the time.
no, it's not. But it takes a lot of growth to be able to admit that and to work through it anyways, right? Even though it's hard. But yeah, no, I can see that it's definitely paid off for you and where you're at in life. And so I
Awesome.
really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
being willing to share.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me share. I mean, anything that can help people like
I'm sure that it will.
have a better life because it's true. Your life goes on afterwards. And
Yeah.
I know my parents wouldn't want me to live any less of a life after they're gone,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No, so I appreciate you sharing today.
Hey friend, I'm so glad that you're here today for this episode. I hope something from this conversation reminded you that you are not alone in what you're carrying, because caregiving can feel so isolating sometimes, but I promise you don't have to do it by yourself. If this resonated with you, feel free to share it with someone who might need it too, and you can always find us over on Instagram at carecollective.podcast for more support in between episodes. And before you go, just a reminder that you are carrying a lot, and the way that you show up for others, regardless of things going on internally, it truly does matter. I'll see you next episode.